Why French food is better than American food. Very often, Americans will visit France and feel like they can eat the buttery croissant, all the different pastries, the meat-heavy, fat-heavy dishes, the wine, the cheese, the bread, and not gain weight. And their explanation for that is that French food is just better, has less additives, preservatives, things inside it that make you gain weight, and that is why American people are fat. It's their food. I have people telling me that the bread they eat in the US will make them bloated and uncomfortable, and then the bread that they eat in France is totally fine for them to eat. But is French food really healthier than American food? We're going to break that down today. First, I think we just need a little bit of historical and cultural perspective on food. French cuisine has aristocratic roots that will emphasize quality, balance, and tradition in the meals. Meals are seen as pleasure, ritual, a deep cultural aspect, and from a young age children are taught that mealtime is important and a great way to fuel your body and also to connect socially and to enjoy that with other people. Now if you look at the American way of eating, it kind of evolved from wanting to be efficient, convenient, it's really mass produced, and it's really this culture that values time saving and just getting in the nutrients as quickly as possible and then going about your day rather than actually truly enjoying the food. And I think this is important background to understand where these differences stem from. Now we're going to deep dive into the actual food ingredients. One of the biggest differences between American food and French food is definitely the level of processing that is going to be involved, including certain additives and just things that are not allowed in France and Europe in general, and that are completely tolerated in the US. The European Union definitely has stricter rules when it comes to additives, and a few additives that are banned in Europe and so in France are not banned in the US. I'm gonna put them on the screen. So if you want, you can use this information to check the nutrition labels of the food you buy in the US and make sure that they do not contain these additives. When it comes to ultra processed foods as well, they are way more popular in the United States. Over 50% of the daily calories of the average American will come from ultra processed foods, and this number is closer to 30% for French people. When it comes to ingredient quality and freshness, it's definitely more regulated in France as well. When it comes to meat and dairy, the European Union has bans on growth hormones and certain antibiotics, while in the US they are allowed for conventional meat production. When it comes to baked goods, there are a bunch in France, but they are made from whole ingredients. Bread is literally going to be flour, water, and yeast, whereas in American bread there's going to be a bunch of sugar, of dough enhancers, and preservatives. And you see the same thing in pastries as well. In France they're going to be made from just butter, sugar, flour, very simple raw ingredients, whereas in the US you're going to find sweets made with high fructose corn syrup and fake butter, like low quality butter, and frosting with weird artificial food dyes and just a bunch of complicated things. And when it comes to fruit and vegetables as well, France has stricter regulations when it comes to pesticides, and it's really easy for French people to go get local in-season fruit and veggies from the market, and the quality is definitely higher there, and also it tastes better, which will help French people actually enjoy the produce and therefore eat healthier. When you look at the government's role, there's definitely an impact there. When you look at what the US subsidizes, it's going to be things that just fuel the production of cheap processed foods, high fructose corn syrup, a bunch of vegetable oils that are not made in a healthy manner, whereas France will try to subsidize more traditional agriculture with more local small farms. When it comes to advertising as well, France actually has restrictions on showing commercials to children that involve junk food or processed foods. And even for adults, if they show something that is sugary or high in fat, there's going to be like a disclaimer saying that you shouldn't eat too many of these foods, that it's not healthy. Whereas in the US, the marketing for fast food, processed foods is aggressive. And beyond the food, portion sizes are also a huge factor. Usually French portions tend to be smaller because French people will focus on the quality of their foods over the quantity, which is what most American people will focus on. So it really makes sense that if you're eating smaller portions of higher quality ingredients that are healthier for you and more satisfying, then all of that will lead to healthier outcomes. And you also have to take into account the meal structure, because for French people it's going to be important to eat 3 meals a day. Maybe if they have a snack, it's going to be a balanced, well portioned out, well thought out snack in between lunch and dinner. Whereas for American people, it's more going to be about eating whenever they have the chance, eating on the go, eating or grazing even. They're not going to really prioritize mealtime. And if you want to know more about the differences in meal structure and portion sizes and meal times and all the things related to that, then I think you'll really enjoy my video on the French paradox and why French people don't get fat, that you can check out right here or in the description. So now we kind of have the overview and the technical aspect of why French food is better than American food, but I think it's really important to understand that this is not going to be the main reason why a lot of Americans are fatter than French people. While all the things I talked about definitely play a role, I think the behaviors around food play an even bigger one. So for instance, what I talked about when it comes to portion sizes, quality over quantity, and valuing mealtime, prioritizing mealtime, this is something that you can do regardless of which country you're in. I also think one thing to take into account for those people saying that when they eat in France the same things as in the US, they're gonna feel better. Often when you are eating these foods, you are on vacation, so your stress levels are lower. You are walking a lot, likely walking around everywhere. France is way more walkable, which is another reason why a lot of French people will get in much more physical activity than American people, which can then lead to it being more difficult for them to gain weight, French people. And so while we definitely have an advantage in France when it comes to our food quality, it's still totally possible to eat in a super healthy, balanced, and satisfying way if you live in the USA, which is what we did when we lived there. So if you want to do that, I definitely suggest you check out my video on how to eat like the French and live the French lifestyle in the US. But in short, what you have to do for that is prioritize whole, fresh ingredients, prefer quality over quantity, and be mindful of your portion sizes, and make sure that you prioritize mealtime and that you eat mindfully and let yourself fully enjoy your meal and have it have a real break, a real social connection if you want that. Make sure that your meals are structured and that you limit grazing and just eating on the go, standing up, grabbing whatever, and that you start having more sit down family meals or sit down by yourself meals where you're actually focused on your meal. You want to make eating a more pleasurable, mindful experience. And like I said previously, you can also try to avoid the foods that are going to have things that are banned in Europe. And in general, if you prioritize whole foods over processed foods, then you're naturally going to get healthier options without banned ingredients. And of course, make sure that you integrate movement into your daily life as well. That's it for this video. I hope that you enjoyed it. If you did, don't forget to like it, subscribe, and see you on my next one. Bye!